Okay, today we're going to be discussing how to document your Dynamics CRM system in a day. It'll probably take you less, but there's a lot of manual labor involved, so depending on what you want to document, it'll be kind of up to you. So if you didn't know me by now, my name is Mitch Milam. I'm an independent consultant and trainer and a CRM architect, also a 10-time Dynamics CRM MVP. You can reach me at Mitch@XRM Coaches. Everybody should have my email by now. My main blog is infinite-x.net, and then, of course, I'm on Twitter at Mitch Milam. So I'd love to hear from you. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping here. Basically, this is the GoToWebinar control panel, and if necessary, we're going to be talking about stuff later on. There's also a little section here, number B, that allows you to raise your hand if you have a question when we get to the Q&A part. So we've got that going. Future events, I have another webinar in 2 weeks talking about the training strategies to increase your Dynamics CRM user adoption. So that'll be on Friday the 29th. So I'd love to see you there. My training roadmap for this year. So continuing doing webinars. So I'm doing 2 or 3 a month depending on stuff. I really appreciate all the feedback that the community has given me on the new ideas and stuff like that. So we've got some good stuff coming up. I'll probably be announcing the stuff for May here pretty shortly, probably 2 weeks from now, probably the last week of April. Don't forget to sign up for Knowledge Bits, which is my email delivery system for tips and tricks for various things, everything from development to administration to training. Also, I have some new learning plans available, so if you go out to xrmcoaches.com/free stuff, you can get them. And then some future things I'm working on. I've got some practice tests coming to help you study for your certification tests, some on-demand video training, some new instructor-led training, and then I've got some books that I'm either revising or releasing. It should be here shortly. Probably going to get the administration and the plugin development ones ready within the next 30 days or so. So those coming out, followed probably by the DDoS security update. So keep an eye out for those. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today are some of the tools we're going to use, where the data is actually located, and then how to actually create reports or otherwise export this data. And PowerPoint is shutting down for a second. Okay, let it restart. Sorry about that. Okay, so there are 3 tools we're going to talk about today. So the first is actually a commercial tool that I sell that actually does all this stuff for you, but we're going to be talking about the trial version, which will pull out a lot of stuff without you having to pay for it. So we're going to be talking about that. And then there's the XRM Toolbox, which is created by Tanguy, a fellow MVP from France. So there's several tools inside of that toolbox that we'll be talking about. And then finally, Snagit is the tool from TechSmith that allows you to do screen captures. I use this almost every day to do some kind of documentation or work with customers or whatever like that. So it's loaded, as you can see, it's right here. And basically, it's an invaluable part of my my work I do every day. So let's talk about the data access that we actually have to pull out. So I've kind of categorized it into three levels of access. So the easy stuff we can pull out with simply advanced find. Remember, most of the stuff that you're documenting inside CRM is just simply data. So we can use advanced find for pulling things out. The challenging stuff comes in where we don't have access to it through advanced find or through the view system within the CRM UI. So we have to use something like the XRM Toolbox, which allows us to create fetch XML queries to actually perform the operations, or in some cases we actually have to drop back to some kind of manual operation to do something because there's no easy way to get it out. And finally, the difficult part is like what I did with my snapshot utility. I actually had to write an application to pull some data out because some data is either almost impossible to get to through the user interface anywhere, or you have to put it together in such a way that you end up writing an application to do it. So all of these we're going to try to cover today and kind of point you to a series of things that will get most everything documented in a pretty short amount of time, I think. So let's talk about the actual documentation procedures themselves. So the first thing that people document, as a general rule, is all the customizations they have. So the trial of Snapshot actually will pull out the entities, the fields, the views, the forms, relationships, option sets, system user charts, and web resources and themes. So that will be done without you, costing any money. All the other stuff Snapshot will do if you purchase it. So I'm not trying to say you Snapshot today. I'm just telling you that's what we're doing today. So that will pull out a huge chunk of the information out of the CRM system. And then the rest of it we have to use other tools for. So we can use Advanced Find to get a list of plugin assemblies and plugin steps. Plugin steps are technically called SDK message processing steps. And we can also use Advanced Find to pull out a list of processes. And then finally, for some reason, solutions aren't available within Advanced Find, so we have to use the XRM Toolbox and do a fetch XML query to pull that information out so that we can actually export it into a file. So this is pretty much most of the customizations that people actually need to document. And later on, we can talk about there's other things that you feel we need to cover too. So when you pull out the plugin assemblies using the Advanced Find, there's a couple of plugin assembly types that we need to ignore because they're totally useless to us because they're part of the system. So anything that begins with Microsoft.CRM or activity feeds can safely be ignored. So this search criteria within Advanced Find will basically just show you things that you've added to the system yourself and ignore the things that it finds in the system that are either part of CRM itself or an add-on like the activity feed. And of course, as time goes by, if you haven't heard, Microsoft is trying to get into using their own solution model to deliver additional functionality. So this list may need to be modified at some point in the future. Plugin steps is very similar to that. There's a thing called the event handler, which is the actual thing that the documentation point that helps you determine what actually gets fired when a specific step is executed. The same thing, if it does not begin with Microsoft.CRM or it does not begin with the word activity feeds, then I want it in my list. Again, solutions, I have to build a fetch XML query, and it's pretty simple to do that with a fetch XML builder that's built into the XRM Toolbox. So we just connect to the solution entity and then select the list of fields that we want, and then when we click the execute button, it will actually perform the query and give us a list that we can export out to whatever format we need. So business management. So I've kind of got these categorized in the way that I refer to them myself. So there are connection roles and templates that will be pulled out by the trial version of Snapshot. Queues can be documented using Advanced Find. One caveat to queues is you might want to filter where the name does not begin with the less than or greater than sign, or sorry, the greater than sign, or sorry, less than sign, pardon me. Because what that is a personal queue. So the CRM team, if you never noticed, the way that it does differentiate queues between queues you created and queues that it creates for each user or team or business unit, which are teams. They all begin with a less than sign and end with a greater than sign. So filtering by this will eliminate all those. You may want those. It's kind of really up to you. But you're gonna find one for every team and every default queue and every user, which is a default queue. Okay, so that might help you there. Administration, there are a couple system settings, entities that we have. So we have system settings, and then we have user settings. Both of these has to be accessed via the XRM Toolbox because they are not shown in the user interface. So the organization entity within CRM actually has all of these settings, and each one is an individual field. There's only really one row in the organization table. And what you're going to find in this is a list of pretty much everything that you can imagine concerning how the organization is configured. A lot of these things are not shown on the interface. They're only accessed maybe using the org settings update tool that the CRM support team has released. There's, I don't know how many, it's over 100, almost 200 fields, I think. So this is just kind of the very top of those. So you just need to pick which ones you get, or which ones you want. Some of these will give you information related to option sets and pick lists, and you kind of have to play around with it to figure out what data actually makes sense to you to pull out. Also, keep in mind on either one of these system settings or user settings, mostly system settings, if you select all of the attributes and you click execute, it will start giving you errors because there are certain fields that do not have the ability to be read by fetch.xml, and it will pop up an error message and say this field is not available for read. So what has to happen is you have to remove that field from the attribute list and just kind of keep going through it until you get through everything. Like I said, there's a couple hundred of them or so. User settings are very similar. Almost all of these actually show up on the personal options screen that people have access to through the user interface or through Outlook. So same exact thing there. Security is a fairly large topic. So we have users, teams, security roles, business units, field security profile, and positions can all be documented using advanced find because, again, they're just data items, so just records. Access team templates and security role privileges are only accessible programmatically through fetch.xml. So you're going to have to access those two things from there. So access team privileges, it will be just like doing the user settings or the system settings. You just pick the access team template and then just select the fields you want and get the data out of that. Security role privileges are a little bit different. So this actually, to get to the privileges themselves, you actually have to link together 3 different entities. You start with the security role, which internally is called the role. You link that to a role privilege entity, which links to the privilege itself. And then what you get back is a list of privileges and then the different types of things that it can be used for. Okay, so this takes a bit of work to kind of figure out what they're doing here. I'm specifically looking for a single security role here. Basically, I'm looking for CEO-Business Manager, which is one of the built-in security roles. You might need to do criteria where you narrow it down to business unit if you want to, if you have multiple business units. So what this will display is that basically the name of the role, the business unit ID name, which is the name of the business unit, and then it will pull out the privileges itself. We'll show this in a few minutes here. Email configuration. So if you are using server-side sync, or even if you're not, you might want to pull out the email server profiles to get information on that. And then if you're in 2013 and above, we now have a mailbox entity that has connection information for the mailbox. The ribbon XML and the sitemap XML, I haven't found a really good way to document those with whatever tools, and I haven't modified Snapshot to pull that information out yet. So, but right now, unless somebody has a better idea, what you would do is just export out the XML for the ribbon and the sitemap, and export it as a solution is what you do. And then just unzip the solution, and inside the customization.xml file, you'll find the actual sitemap or the ribbon diff stuff. So that's just one way to do it. Maybe in the future, I'm trying to find a good way to actually document the sitemap. The ribbon stuff, I'm still kind of vacillating on to figure out what would be the best way for that to happen. Okay, JavaScript can be kind of problematic because of where it's stored and how it's accessed. It's actually pretty easy to pull the stuff out. It's just a web resource. Okay, so you can actually pull out a list of web resources using Snapshot. But if you want the JavaScript itself, what you can do is use the web resources manager that is part of the XML Toolbox, and what that will do is allow you to actually copy the code locally. So it'll actually make a copy into the file system. And there's also a thing called Script Finder, which will list all of your JavaScript web resources. Those are two pretty handy. There's also a commercial tool called the CRM Solution Manager, which I didn't put up here. That's really specifically for developers. It's an add-in for Visual Studio that allows you to connect up your CRM and your Visual Studio system to where you can actually work in Visual Studio. Then it will handle the job of pulling data, web resources out of CRM and publishing them back to CRM. So if you're doing any kind of development, I would definitely take a look at that tool. It's a couple $100, but it's definitely worth the time and effort. Forms. So I use Snagit to capture my forms. And the interesting thing about this, and your mileage will vary 100% from each person to each person on the call here. What we're going to find is it is extremely version specific. And when I say version, I mean all versions, CRM, the web browser, and Windows. So I'll show you how it works on this, my computer, which is now running on Windows 10, and I'll be using Chrome with CRM 2015 Online. That'd be the spring release plus. And but what will happen is, depending on the version of CRM you're using, the version of Windows you have, and the version of the browser and the version of the browser, your mileage will vary 100%. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if it works great. If it doesn't, you have to do a lot of manual labor. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes here. Processes are exactly the same thing. So the processes are actually stored as what they call XAML, XAML, which is a form of XML. And it's really kind of hard to document. I've spent more than a little bit of time and trouble and money trying to actually pull that information out into a form that makes sense, and I was not successful. So the easiest way to actually document your processes is to actually take a screenshot of the actual process, because again, there's no export feature to text. The data is stored in a format that just doesn't make it easy to pull out, and until that changes, you're just going to be left with doing screenshots of stuff. Okay. So who wants to go see how some of this stuff works? Anybody? Nobody? Whoops. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to capture a form using Snagit. Okay, now I'm going to make a very broad assumption that you guys are going to be able to see this. I think you will. I don't think it will not work. Basically, my concern is the variations between the GoToMeeting screen capture and the Snagit screen capture. So here's a form for contact, and when I go to Snagit and say I would like to snag an image, when I hover over this, you'll see that it popped an icon up at the bottom of the screen that says Capture Vertical Scrolling Area. And it will do this anytime or most times it sees a scrolling region, either vertical or horizontal, on a page. Okay, so I'm going to click this, and don't touch the mouse, just let it do its thing. And as you see, it's actually scrolling. Okay, so let's see what it captures. Okay, that seemed to actually worked. So here is documented my entire form layout. So then all you have to do is go into your the form editor for any form of any entity, and then what you do is just modify it to or just basically open up in design mode and just do a screenshot here. And if you want to, you can do things like cut off the side. Maybe I'll leave that one. Here we go. Okay, and now we have a fully documented screen. Now, one of the things I have noticed, sometimes if I'm at the top of the screen, top of the form, and I choose the scrolling region from there, even though it scrolls, it doesn't actually capture the scroll. Don't know why, it's just the way it happens. Okay, it did this time because I think it had already done it before. So the way that I found to get around that is to actually scroll to the bottom of the scrolling region, whatever it might be, and then start the capture process from there. And what it will do is it'll actually move up to the top of the screen of the scrolling region, and then it'll scroll back down to the bottom, and that seems to work pretty well. Okay, so that works the same with this or with the other things we're going to capture. So let's look at processes real quick. So here is one of the samples that ships. So I'm going to capture it. Again, the same thing. Click on an image. Click on my scrolling region. Get my hand off the mouse. And it will actually document my entire sales process here, business process flow. If I go back here and I go to, I think this is what I had last time. Okay, so I've got enough scrolled here. So again, I'm going to select image, select my scrolling region, and it did indeed scroll down and capture the scrolled area. Okay, so I really like it when this works out like I said it would. With Windows 8.1, I don't think IE it pays attention to as well as it does Chrome. And like I said, different versions of CRM can react differently. So I know that 2015 and 2016 online seem to work just fine with Chrome. I just upgraded this machine to Windows 10 a couple weeks ago because, well, I had no choice. And it seems to work just fine. So this is the way you can document stuff. By the way, if you didn't know, while we're in this, I've covered this before, but just while we're here, if you ever don't want to see this stuff at the top, if you did notice that little down arrow right there beside that says hide process properties, do that. Now all you have is steps. So if you're having trouble with the scrolling, you can close that up and just capture the steps, and there you go. If you need the properties of the individual step, you're going to have to open the box and take a screenshot of that, but that's just the way it would work. Okay? So there's that. This page. Okay. Now let's go look at the XRM Toolbox application. So the XRM Toolbox is a shell that has various plugins. So some of the plugins are written by third parties. Most are written by Toggy himself, and they provide a whole host of things that you need to pay attention to. If you don't have this tool in your toolbox, then you need to go out and download it before the end of the day. Okay? There will be a test on Monday, and I will come around to each of you, and if I don't see it on your desktop, then we're going to have a talk. Okay? So anyway, so it's got all kinds of really fancy tools. In here, what we're using today is the FetchXML Builder, which I've already got a couple of them open. So this is the one I was telling you. This is the query to actually pull in the privileges for a security role. So when I execute this, and again, there's a query the designer over here on the left-hand side. You can also edit the FetchXML, the XML of the FetchXML directly if you know that language. If you don't, you can just use the point and click. You're going to need to know a little bit about it because it uses a terminology here called linked entity, which is a fancy word for join if you're in SQL at all. So you can edit that directly, or you can just do it through the menu. When I execute it, it's going to come up with the list of privileges. Now, the way that privileges work within CRM is they all begin with the prefix PRV. Then there is a word in the middle, which is the actual privilege. So you're going to have create, read, write, delete, append to, and share. Okay, so those are for the entity type privileges. Then you get into the permission type privileges or action privileges like bulk edit. So one that's a read. override pricing engine order, things like that. But they're all like that. And then this privilege access right is a numerical version of this privilege here. And this is going to be varying degrees of value from 0 for none to I think it goes up to 524,288. This is what they call a masked field. So the value is actually coded. So anyway, so most of the time what you're really looking for is this, and then you have to, that will tell you what it is, and then the number will actually tell you what level of privilege it is. So what you have is you have none, user, business unit, parent, child, business unit, and organization. Okay. This information is actually documented in the SDK if you want to pull it out, but this is what you get back when you do a report like that. So you really and truly you match up the word here in this column, the name column, and then the access right. The name column tells you what, and then the access right tells you what you can do. Okay. And then for some of the others, let's see if I open this again. I go to like was it access team? You know, I think I screw my keyboard up whenever I plug my mic in. Let's see, access, or no, it's team access template, sorry. That's not it. We'll look at that and see what that does. Oops. So you pick your entity, then you can select your attributes. I select all, and then just click execute. And there's only one team. Okay. Just while we're in this, the way that the query system within Dynamics CRM works is if there is a blank or a null value in the field, it will not return that field value. So if you notice that we only have one width of screen of columns, but we have a whole lot of columns there. Basically, there were no values returned, so the result set was empty for that specific field. So it will never return a null value to you. It's kind of odd, but that's the way it works. Okay. Here is the Web Resources Manager. So this actually allows you to edit the web resource and then push it back into CRM if you would like, similar to what I was telling you that the CRM Solution Manager tool does, except for the fact that you edit within this. If you want to actually export out, you can just check the boxes beside the name, and then under the file menu here, there is Save Checked Web Resources with roots, which means the root of the folder there, and then or just save the ones just directly somewhere. So this is how you actually export out your JavaScript. And then finally, the script finder basically just goes out and retrieves a list of all of the JavaScript inside the system. So some of these are actually system stuff. Anytime you see the word, the phrase system_library on a JavaScript file, that's actually internal to CRM itself. So if you ever see that, you can just ignore it. Sometimes you'll see those pop up when you're moving solutions around, like, oh, you didn't include this. Well, I couldn't include it because it's one of yours. So just ignore it. Okay. So that's about it I had for today. I know it's kind of short and sweet, but those are the kind of the big things that we generally document. What questions do you have today? See, Pam, do you have a question? Let me unmute you. Oops. Okay, Pam, you want to say something?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bro. Okay, John. Okay, John, you're up. Mattel. John, can you hear me? Can you talk? Oh, gets down. I don't want to talk either. See, Hog wants to see the scrolling Snagit again. Sure. So if we go back to Chrome, to my form, basically I go to the Snagit window, click on image, and then at the bottom you'll notice there's a little icon that when I hover over it says capture scrolling area. All you do is push that button and take your hand off the mouse, and it will actually scroll the region. And then piece together the snapshot it made of that region. And that gives us our stuff. Yeah, Pam says Snagit is great. Use it over a year for documentation. I literally, Pam, use it every single day. Like, I mean, if you look at my library, I mean, I have they can't find them right here because I've changed machines, but I have hundreds of these things. I was doing some documentation on my Fun with Fields thing, and I think I had over 150 screenshots or something like that in the documentation itself. And that wasn't just what I took, that's what I ended up with. Oh yeah, this will be recorded, by the way. I always record it, always put it on YouTube, so it'll be up on YouTube here shortly, by the end of the day. And I'll send everybody a link out so you don't have to worry about writing all this stuff down. Okay. What questions here? Melinda asked about the security documentation. Like I said, that's the problem with this is you have to know what this number means. This number here. So basically, it's in the SDK. It will tell you what the thing is, and the way it works is this is, like I said, this is coded. So that each value means something. I don't have the SDK loaded, but basically, if you just look up security privileges, you should see a table that lists all these values out. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll send it to everybody. Linda asks, how can you document personal views and dashboards? That is a good question. How do we document those? Let's see. Okay, it's not there. I think dashboards is a okay, not there. Oops. Okay, dashboards is actually a system form, if I'm not mistaken. It's a variation of system form. Okay, I'm just going to select everything. Supporting solution ID. This is that error message I was telling you about earlier, so I have to go remove that. Supporting solution ID. For managed. What's that? Okay. Okay, so here are the system dashboards. That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I'll have to get back to you on that, Linda. Sorry about that. Adam asks, how often do you capture all of this information? You know, that's a good question. That's really kind of a personal thing. I've got one of my Snapshot customers. He literally runs it once a month, if I'm not mistaken. And he actually uses it for backup. He's not on the thing today. Anyway, yeah, so he actually runs it once a month as a kind of a backup record of things that happened. Okay. Peter asks, is there any way to pull the XAML out of the process instead of taking screenshots? Yeah, just export them out. Put them in a solution, export them to a solution, open the customization XML file, and there they are. So that documents it. You know, again, it's hard to read because they're they're not encoded to a point, but they're just all reference all kind of internal variables and things like that. Adam, business process flows are exactly the same thing. So I showed you how to do it manually. They're all stored in XAML. So you can actually export any of the processes. So that's dialogues, workflows, business process flows, and what else is it? Business rules and stuff. Those are all XAML. And like I said, you can export all those things out, unzip the file, look at the customization.xml file, and find what's in there, whatever makes sense to you. Okay, anything else? Nope. Okay.